Okay, everyone. I hope that you are enjoying your Sunday. This is kind of an impromptu stream, and I am going to do this about college football. So, a little bit of background for those of you that are, just familiar with my channel, know exactly. Like, I talk a lot about topics that, in my opinion, are kind of niche topics that not every American would probably be interested in. But one second, let me just get rid of this. Put this over here. I want to see if anybody's in the chat. Hit me up in the chat. I will keep the chat somewhere where I can see it. So, in any case, what I wanted to say is that um, college football, other topics like that, I haven't really addressed on this channel, or for that matter, as much on my other channel. But we're getting to the 6th, which will be in 4 days. I get live streaming back on my channel, so there won't be an issue with live streaming there. So the question is, what becomes of this channel? The truth is that with the way YouTube is working now, I could very easily just get another strike, and at that point, in fact, YouTube could probably boot my channel or severely restrict it. The Bold Like a Leopard channel, for those that don't know what it is. So I am going to keep this one around just for the future when, when I need to possibly have to do that again. So this channel is going to stay. The other reason I want to keep this channel is that for the time being, there are certain topics that I think aren't necessary. They don't necessarily fit into the other channel. And some of these sports and society and culture topics, music, things like that, I'm not sure that they necessarily fit in with my other channel, Bold Like a Leopard. So you can always expect to see once in a while some content on here. Maybe not all of it will be live. In fact, I'm considering just doing uploads on this channel and then switching all of the live streaming to there, because honestly, it's not as if there's if it's not as if I get a ton of traffic on here. You can probably see right now, but I did want to discuss a couple of things. This is Sunday, the day after the conference championships in the NCAA. So we could probably, in fact, let's take a look at the sports scores for the NCAA, and just let it load. This is on Yahoo. So we have the results came in, and you see here, let's look at the top 25. Sorry I didn't have this ready, but you see that Washington is the Pac-10 championship, Pac-12, sorry, because they had to expand to some other teams that probably wouldn't make it to the playoff. But let's say, so you have Washington won that. I think at the beginning of the year, I don't think many people believed that Washington would have such a tough time getting there. I think that at a certain point they had an issue with, let me see here, Washington. I think that they had 3 losses, and let's look at their schedule, for example. So we're going to get to the actual football playoff at a certain point. What is going on here? Just want to see their record. Jeez. Okay, so the Huskies, what the fuck? Are they putting this on the... So, let's see here, scores and schedules. So the Huskies, they lost to Auburn. Not surprising, that's an SEC school, and Auburn is honestly better. They lost to Oregon, which is, in many years, Oregon is a powerful team. This year they only went 8-4. Oregon under Chip Kelly used to be like the big. They used to be kind of like the evil empire of the Pac-12, but now Chip Kelly, by the way, never won anything with Oregon except for Pac-12 championships. So he was the last powerhouse coach in the Pac-12. For those of you living on the West Coast, I didn't even know. Well, North Dakota isn't even in the Pac-12, so they beat them, and then they lost to Cal. So they had to scrape their way back, beat Stanford, beat Oregon State, and then they knocked off Washington State, who are their big in-state rivals. I think Washington's big rival in general would probably be Oregon, and then would be Washington State. But yeah, you have to hand it to them. They did win, but what does it mean? They have 3 losses. So no, the Pac-12 definitely doesn't deserve a bowl berth. Then you have Iowa State. You had you had the Oklahoma Sooners. They knocked off Texas, so they will probably get into the playoff, in my opinion. But other people think otherwise. You have UCF, I think, yeah, just the Knights. The Scarlet Knights are Rutgers, right? So they have gone undefeated again. They always seem to go undefeated, and then they don't get anything for it. So yeah, that's going to be it's going to be probably a very disappointing year, as always, with the BCS. You see Alabama won they won the SEC championship. That was the big game. Everybody was talking about that Alabama game. So why was that such a big deal? Well, if Alabama, who are number 1, would have lost to Georgia, who are number 4, and Alabama had won all of these other games during the year, then I think Alabama hadn't lost a single game. Not only have they not lost a single game, but Alabama, I believe, let's close this window and open this one. Alabama had won every single one of its games by some sort of like insane score. They were winning. Let me see here. Football 2018 schedule. So they beat Louisville by 51-14. Arkansas State 57. So all these are real blowouts. Ole Miss 62-7. That's insane. And by the way, a couple years ago, Ole Miss was a great program, and they've just completely fallen apart. I think Mariota went to Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken, and then he transferred to Oregon. Yeah, Marcus Mariota. I think he started at Ole Miss, then transferred to Oregon, where he lost the championship game. Texas A&M by 22 points. Lafayette by 32 points. But no, sorry, that's 42 points. So some of those games are kind of against tomato cans. Then there's Arkansas by 34 points. Missouri by 29 points. That's not a surprise. Missouri's fallen apart as a program. Tennessee by 37 points. LSU shut them out 29-0. And LSU was like a significant power at the time. People thought, oh, the LSU's gonna shock the world and everything. It didn't happen. LSU ended up going 9-3, and they're still ranked number 10. Florida is in the SEC. They're ranked number 9. Look how many SEC teams are in the top 25, by the way. You have Missouri with 4 losses. And it's all because people consider their conference to be the best in the country. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. So let's count them. Missouri, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, that's 3. You have Kentucky, 4. You have LSU, 5. Florida, 6. Climb a little higher. You have Georgia, 7. And Alabama. That's 8 teams of the top 25. More than a third of the team. Well, yeah, a little less than a third of the top 25 are SEC schools. And I think that kind of makes it makes the whole college football is kind of a joke, because if you have one conference that's whether rightly or wrongly, I mean, the SEC does have a lot of teams that are much better than let's say in the Pac-12, for example. I think it's true that the Pac-12 isn't that good, but let's examine some of the losses of these teams and really ask why is it that they get to be in the BCS? Not in the BCS. We'll talk about the BCS soon. I think the BCS is technically defunct. So Mississippi State, which was 4th in the SEC, they had losses to Kentucky, Florida, LSU, and Alabama. So they can make the case because all 4 of those other teams are ranked in the top 25. Okay, so by virtue of that, they were able to claim, well, we earned our place in the BCS, in the top 25. I'm gonna keep making that mistake the whole day, but then let's look at Texas A&M. Close this one. A&M. So, whoops. Yeah, they lost to Clemson. They got destroyed by Alabama, I guess, and then their other. So they can always claim. Look, when you're a team that you always play a lot of top 25 teams, then you can pretty much pretend that the rest of college football doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that they lost to three other teams in their own conference. I don't believe that merits them being in the top 25, getting a bowl berth. I think definitely, in my opinion, Texas A&M does not deserve a premier bowl berth. Okay, but everybody's going to say, well, why should we care about what you say? Because everybody knows all the best teams are in the SEC. It doesn't matter. Okay, how many? So you're basically saying that let's look at the standings. Texas A&M is the second. It's even the 5th best team in the SEC, and yet people are trying to say that they are worth having as a top 25 team in the country. And that's why I think college football has become kind of a joke. No offense to fans. I think definitely you have to remember, why is college football so popular? Because in states like Kansas and not Missouri, but Kansas and Nebraska and Minnesota and Oregon, for example, even if they have a pro team, the pro team isn't exactly good every year. In many years, by the way, another good thing about college football is that you don't really see tanking, which I think is something that the pro sports have that is really a disgrace. So I would say, yeah, we have to give credit where it's due to college sports, but when you have a system like this where you have the college football playoff, so that if everything had ended yesterday, you would have had Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Georgia as the top 4 teams. If Georgia would have beaten Alabama, it would have remained that way. You would have probably had Alabama slip to number 3 and Clemson go to number 1, but all 4 of those teams would have remained in there. Maybe Georgia would have been number 3. I don't remember. I mean, it's a good question. By the way, Alabama, excuse me, Alabama almost did lose to Georgia, so you would have had 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. A lot of people were really predicting that might happen, and there was a distinct possibility. Instead, I think Georgia will probably slip to number 6 or something, and then you'll probably have Oklahoma slip into the top 4, and Notre Dame. It will be Notre Dame, Clemson, Alabama, and Oklahoma will be in the championship in the semifinals, and then I would predict then that you will have probably Oklahoma at number 3, Notre Dame at number 4. So it'll be Oklahoma versus Clemson in the semifinal, and from there, I'm not quite sure what will happen. I would say it's a distinct possibility that Notre Dame defeats. Well, no, I think Notre Dame gets smoked by Alabama in the semifinal, and they will end up facing Clemson in the final, which has happened 2 times already in the past 4 years, maybe even more. How many times? So let's go look at the NCAA division, the college football championship. So blah blah blah. So it goes all the way back to 1869 when Princeton, for example, was. So this is, for a while it was kind of like a joke. It's just whoever could pay enough for the bus ride to the stadium could probably win the championship. Then in the 30s, it really became, maybe even earlier, like the 20s was when it started to be kind of a big deal. But you had 6 different champions in the same year because nobody could agree what the system was. So this isn't a new problem. The college football playoff being basically one of the new solutions to this, but it hasn't necessarily solved anything. Um, you had Notre Dame and Alabama both winning the same year because they both had 10-0 records and they didn't face each other. Colgate, Colgate, I think is it's a small liberal arts school somewhere. I don't even know where Colgate is. It's somewhere in yeah, where is it? It's in New York, upstate New York somewhere. So yeah, you had them winning championships, and so towards the 50s, the system kind of got a little tighter, but still, you see in 1951 there were 5 national championships, national champions or teams that claimed a national championship, with Tennessee being the one that netted the most credible ones, which are the AP, Associated Press, and the United Press. And then the other ones are, you have all these. Here's the College Football Writers of America. So they would write that, oh, we consider this person to be it. So every year you have to look at which college got more of the prestigious honors. So split decisions here in 1954, OSU and UCLA. Full disclosure, I am an OSU fan. They split it, but eventually it became a little less chaotic. Took a while, as you can see here. Dang. Yeah, in 1986 there were three colleges that were considered to be national champions: Penn State, Oklahoma, and Miami. In 1987, you finally got here. This is what bothers me. Okay, you can still have Florida State be declared a national championship and be recognized as such, even though Miami basically logged every single other honor. Every single other college was every single other source was considered the new yeah. So you have United Press, AP, USA Today. They all picked Miami, but because one smaller publication picked Florida State, they are considered national champions by some people, I guess. And yeah, even like later than that, you had 1994. I think I remember that year. Nebraska and Penn State kind of this for some reason. I guess Bobby Bowden and Florida State were able to convince some person every year to name them national champion. It's ridiculous. Here every year, even this was a year, I think 1996 was in Florida. Florida actually beat Florida State in I don't even remember what bowl game it was. Yeah, in the Sugar Bowl here, they just destroyed out Florida State by like an insane margin, 32 points, and yet somebody decided, oh, we're still going to vote for Florida State. And then the next year, you had 2 undefeated teams that they both shared the title. So no, I think the national it's good that the BCS eventually happened, but in the end, it didn't make a whole lot of difference. But yeah, you had a little more clarity here. Here in 2002, some people still thought that USC, which with 2 losses, was the real national champion versus Ohio State, which went 14-0. Okay, that's bullshit. Then you had 2004 was the Reggie Bush year, where I think they were stripped of the title. What is I don't even remember let's see what the note says. So they were stripped of its 2004 Grantland Rice Trophy and vacated the selection of its national champion for 2004. The BCS also vacated UCSC's participation in the 2005 Orange Bowl and USC's 2004 BCS National Championship, and the AFCA Coaches Poll Trophy was returned. So I guess that year didn't happen, did it? Um, so for the past few years, we've had even Alabama. Okay, Alabama in 2015 was unanimously considered the BCS or the College Football Playoff national champions. The first year of that championship, by the way, Ohio State won in a real surprise, beating Oregon, and before that, they also beat Alabama, I believe, in the semifinal. But yeah, Alabama has pretty much dominated college football since the year 2009, except for a couple anomalies. You had this year, 2010, when Cam Newton won the championship with Auburn, their big rival. And then in 2011, Alabama just started to dominate again, winning their first. Well, no, they've had one, two, three, four, five national titles under Nick Saban. That's insane. I think Nick Saban also won another national championship with LSU. So that would make him, yeah, he won another one in 2003 with Louisiana State. Then he went to coach. This is what I don't get. I hear people claiming that Urban Meyer, who I don't think is a great guy, but he's at least a talented guy. He never tried to, I mean, he's won 3 national championships. They claim that he's a snake, an evil person. But Nick Saban is the guy who went and coached the Miami Dolphins and quit midseason. So, I think that really people have to kind of get some perspective, really get some perspective on that, because I don't think that it's justified at all. That Nick Saban is, yes, he's a genius in terms of his performance in college football, but in reality, I don't think I don't think that he's the overall coaching genius. If you're talking, so his NFL career was a complete failure. I think people have to remember that, because it's not often that a coach quits basically mid-season and leaves. I think the only other example was Bobby Petrino, who did the same thing in order to quit. He quit the Falcons mid-season because Michael Vick was arrested and eventually went to prison, so that he could go back to Arkansas after, I believe, he started his career at Louisville, or he prior to being in the NFL, he was at Louisville. So yeah, I think we can examine what's going on here. It says here the college football playoff selection show is coming up soon. Here's how you can watch, and the only debate is whether number 5 Oklahoma or number 6 Ohio State. It might actually have already happened, so sorry if this is outdated information. Or number 6 Ohio State will secure that coveted 4th spot. Georgia, for dramatic purposes, will be included in the discussion as well, but this is for argument's sake only, no more. Well, they blew that lead yesterday. I don't know why anybody want to watch Georgia blow another lead against Alabama in 3 weeks, or possibly just get stomped, because I'll be honest with you, I don't like Alabama, but I think they're going to win that game. Predictors from ESPN and 538 have Ohio State at number 4 in their final rankings before the big reveal. In fact, 538 has the top 4 of Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, with Notre Dame being left out at number 5. ESPN's machine says that Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame will make the playoffs, and with the Buckeyes getting it over the Sooners. For the record, Georgia is ranked 6th by both algorithms. Here's how both sites have the teams ranked with playoff chances in parentheses. So ESPN, everybody agrees that Alabama will be in, deservedly so. ESPN says 99%. Clemson says 99%. Notre Dame 98%, and Ohio State 71%. Oklahoma gets snubbed, and Georgia gets just booted. 5% chance of getting in. Oklahoma with 26%. 538 gives Georgia even less of a chance with 1%. Notre Dame gets a 61% chance, and they get edged out by Ohio State. And then Oklahoma gets in with 72%, Clemson and Alabama. So I think that kind of shows you how murky and bizarre this whole world of college football rankings is. And I think it's really an illustration of, the college football playoff is an improvement on the BCS. There's this book that I saw and I'm not sure exactly, um, if it's worth getting or reading. Actually, it's only like $1. Maybe I'll get it and I'll read it for shits and giggles. It's outdated because the BCS is over. But let's talk a little about the BCS, which it started in 1998 and it ended in 2013. That's how they used to select college football teams. It says, in Death of the BCS, authors Dan Wetzel, Josh Peter, and Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan, I think, by the way, is a good reporter, one of the few good sports reporters left. Take aim at the controversial Bowl Championship Series, the system of polls and computer rankings that determine the two teams that will play for college football's national championship, as well as the prestigious Rose, Sugar, Orange, and Fiesta Bowls. The authors, who are reporters for Yahoo, examined public records and interviewed officials representing universities, conferences, and bowl games. They say they found a corrupt system that's inherently unfair to smaller programs, robs fans of seeing fair competition, and often leaves taxpayers in the lurch. At least one member of Congress has asked for a Justice Department investigation into whether the BCS violates antitrust laws. That's interesting. The BCS is technically run by the commissioners of college football's 11 conferences and the athletic director of Notre Dame, because Notre Dame doesn't belong to a conference. So that's the reason. Damn it. Dude. Fucking idiots. But authors say it's controlled by the heads of the six largest conferences: the Big Ten, Big East, ACC, SEC, Big 12, and Pac-10, and a handful of bowl directors. So that was at the time. Now, I would say now that the Big East is not a factor anymore. It's completely lost any relevance. I think the only team that was really a big factor back then was West Virginia. And let me see here. So West Virginia Mountaineers, who are normally a pretty good football team. So they're I think in the Big 12 now. So yeah, they're in the Big 12. They have been in since 2011. So the Big East isn't even important anymore. I think the Big East as a conference has fallen apart. The ACC is only relevant because of two teams: Florida State, Clemson, and if you really want to make a stretch, Syracuse. I think Notre Dame, for the love of all things decent, quit with this whole independent bullshit. That's the only reason they do that, by the way, is to get on TV every week. So Notre Dame, I think, should join the Big East, or not the Big East, the ACC in football. That would make a lot more sense, but they don't, because they're basically dick wagging to the rest of the country. Then the SEC, no need to explain that. The Big 12 and what was then the Pac-10, it's now the Pac-12. I would say the Pac-12 is sinking in its importance. A lot of these schools that were once Pac-12 powerhouses, USC, UCLA. By the way, full disclosure, I don't get to watch a lot of these games because I keep the Sabbath, so I have to watch the replays, or I have to watch maybe like a summary or a highlight reel or something. But if I do watch a game, it's usually a late game, so it's likely on the West Coast, Pac-10 or sorry, Pac-12, or even the Mountain West Conference. They have some good games, by the way. If people laugh at those conferences, but the games are actually more entertaining, because I think more Pac-12 games are competitive, as opposed to in the Big Ten. There's a lot of blowouts. In SEC, there's a lot of blowouts. In the ACC, especially, you either have Duke and some other irrelevant team playing, or Clemson just owning another team. So those are the conferences that rule the college football playoff. And he says it's that elite group, they contend, that wields the power and divvies up revenue from TV contracts, ticket sales, and sponsorships, while using the system to keep smaller non-BCS schools like Utah and Boise State out of the championship game. So that's true, and now Boise State isn't even as powerful of a conference as it used to be. I mean, we can look here. I believe that Boise State, which was ranked number 22, actually got upset in their championship game. This is the UCF, the University of Central Florida. They're in Conference USA. Conference USA used to be more important in college basketball. So they really have the short end of the stick. UCF. They would have to move into one of the Power 5 conferences in order to really get a shot, and they go undefeated literally every year. So I think it's absolutely unfair for them. Ohio State would be going into the championship, the college football playoff, with a 12-1 record. They would be the only team if this, so they would replace Georgia. So the two teams that would be replacing Georgia would be either Ohio State or Oklahoma, which both have a loss. UCF does not have a loss. I think that there is a point to mentioning that. Okay, so the BCS is technically run by the so we already read that. If that's the elite group they contend that wields the power and divvies up revenues, leaving these teams out. Since the BCS began in 1998, 10 undefeated non-BCS conference teams have been shut out of the championship game, often passed over for BCS schools with a loss. Well, that's exactly what's happening this year with the college football playoff. That has caused public derision of the BCS, which the authors call a roach amid a typhoon of raid. What the fuck? The book says bowl payouts aren't what they appear to be, with schools contractually obligated to buy a slew of game tickets, and the 5 BCS bowls often help cover financial losses that many schools incur playing in the other 30 or so bowl games. Death of the BCS also says the executive director of the 2008 Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl, which was paid $320,492 in salary, more than 10% of the game's total revenue, and the University of Iowa had to pay each member of its marching band, which performed at halftime, a $65 game ticket for the 2009 Outback Bowl at a cost of $22,490. Damn it. The authors offer a compelling alternative plan. One, they say, could generate 3 to 4 times the revenue, a 16-team playoff with the winners of the 11 Division 1A conferences and 5 at-large bids. They came up with the plan by consulting with conference commissioners, marketing professionals, athletic directors, TV executives, and bowl representatives, among others. They acknowledge a postseason playoff would be a bold step, one that likely won't happen without intervention by the Justice Department. Until then, the roach lives on. So, yeah, I think that this was a bullshit system, but what did they do then? Okay, so there used to be this thing called the Bowl Coalition, which replaced. It used to be as many national polls as possible would be used in order to add to somebody's cred as the national championship. And then, one second, let me see this. This guy keeps fucking messaging me. Okay. So it used to be all of these teams would try to compete for as many polls as possible to put them at the top, and then they would try to get lotteried into the right bowl game. Okay, so let me see if I can even find this. Yeah, the poll era. The polling system first gained widespread consistency with the introduction of the AP poll in 1936, followed by the coaches poll in 1950. National championships are often popularly considered to be consensus when both of these polls are in agreement with their national championship selections, although other selectors exist and do make alternative selections. A more modern incarnation, the Bowl Championship Series, was a consortium of college football conferences that uses a combination of various computer rankings and human polls to mathematically determine a postseason matchup between the two teams as determined by his formula. The USA Today coaches poll was contractually obligated to name the BCS champion as its national champion. So that makes total sense to me. And here you have the coaches trophy here that was introduced later. So yeah, I would say that that was an improvement. Introducing with every era there was a bit of an improvement, but there were 6 conferences at the time in the Bowl Coalition, but it was dominated by the SEC and remember, this was back in the day when the Big 8 conference was the one that preceded the Big 12. So these were some pretty small conferences at the time. The SEC wasn't nearly as large as it is today. I think at the time the SEC was only, let's see the history of it. Okay, so basically the original members were Alabama, Tulane, which is no longer, it's now I think in, let's see here, Conference USA, Georgia Tech, which is in the ACC, Sewanee, which is no longer even in Division One, and I think Sewanee might not even exist. I'm not even sure. Auburn, 1932, Florida, 1932, Georgia, 1932, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Vandy. So those are the original universities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, okay, sorry. I don't even know how to count now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 3 others that eventually left. So 13 original teams. And then gradually you had Arkansas added in 1991, South Carolina added in 91, and Texas A&M in 2012, and Missouri in 2012. So that rounds it out to 14 teams in the SEC. So at the time, it was 10 teams in the SEC were really dominating football. And then there was the Bowl Alliance. And that was between the actual bowl games, not the conferences, trying to match the national champions to the school. So that was the Sugar, Orange, and Fiesta Bowls. I think nowadays the Orange Bowl doesn't mean shit. And the Sugar Bowl, I think it still has some prominence. And the Rose Bowl, I think is the second big game. So the two teams, or I should say the 2 games that are the semifinals, I think are the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. The Rose Bowl is in LA, whereas the Sugar Bowl is in New Orleans. And the Fiesta Bowl, I think, is in Phoenix or Tempe, Arizona. So the Fiesta Bowl, I think, is no longer is I think would be the 3rd most important bowl game. It's over. It used to be at Sun Devil Stadium. Now it's at State Farm Stadium, which used to be, I believe, it used to be University of Phoenix Stadium. Yeah, that used to be its name. Now it's State Farm. I guess there's no brand loyalty. Now it's not even part of it. Well, yeah, maybe it is part of every 3 years it says it's the semifinal game of the college football playoff. So those three were able to shoehorn their way in during the Bowl Coalition era, and now they're still basically the big conferences. I'll tell you exactly what I think. I think we're going to close with this. I think that the cure-all for everything that's going on here is ending this charade of college athletics being student athletes. These kids, these kids that go into college football or college basketball, they're not trying to get a degree in, in computer science. Most of them, the majority of them, not going to say everybody, is some jock, and they don't care. They all they want to do is they want to shoot hoops, or they want to tackle people or something. So I say you change the arrangement. Instead of calling these people, instead of calling them student athletes, you basically say, well, we're going to have these people. The colleges are going to basically own professional basketball teams, professional football teams, and they will contract people. They'll have them join as basically semi-pro athletes. They'll get all of the training from their coaches and everybody else, basically as employees of the university. And then, if they want to go to school, they'll get some sort of discounted tuition rate, not a full scholarship. And they'll probably make like a salary of $40,000 or something a year, and it will be, taxable like anybody else, and that'll be it. And it works pretty much the same in Europe. I think in Europe they might not even pay them, so I'm even being more generous. What happens in Europe is that the clubs, let's say if you have a club in Italy, for example, Atalanta. So Atalanta would have a football academy, soccer academy, and they would basically have all of these college aged soccer players come and play for them, and then if they want to continue with their schooling in the meantime, they get some sort of financing from the club. Even though they don't get the whole payment, they probably get some of it, and that's how those soccer prodigies are able to do some of their. And most of them, I believe, don't even do that. They just play soccer at the club level and develop and become club soccer players at a higher level. Or if they don't, they have to eventually quit and go back to schooling. But them's the breaks. That is the way I think you have to do it. You can't have this phony baloney student athlete system. And that's about it. So please like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, Razor Ray Live Wounds, and my other channel, Bold Like a Leopard, which will be getting live streaming back in about 4 days. Also, please join me on Minds, join me on Gab, BitChute. Bold Like a Leopard has a channel at Chef Leopard. And please tip me at the Patreon below, and I'll talk to you guys later.